the for inviting me to make this presentation. My name, as was stated, is Anita Mwande Asiata. I teach and practice of English and gynecology. I was invited here to discuss with you about the development and peer review process. Next slide. That's my outline. Next slide. The next slide of my outline, the final slide. Next slide. Now, what's about development? The systematic process of transforming a research idea or completed study into a scientific manuscript suitable for publication. Next slide. What's the process, or what are the processes of development of a research paper? One, you generate a research idea. We are going to study so and so. Two, you review relevant literature, in relation to that idea you're developed. Three, you develop your research protocol. Four, of course, once you're conducting any study now, particularly when it involves medical research, you must obtain an ethical institutional approval. You collect your data. After you collect, you obtain approval from a relevant ethical institutional committee or ethical research or review committee. You now collect your data, you analyze your data. Next slide. Now, what are the types of research papers? Remember, we're talking about research papers initially. You have original articles. What are original articles? These are comprehensive primary reports of new data, methodologies, and conclusions. You have review articles. Review articles do not present any new experimental data. They actually summarize, synthesize, and evaluate existing research on a specific topic. Next slide. You have systematic reviews. Systematic reviews are rigorous structural evaluations of the literature that aim to answer the highly focused question. You have meta-analysis. These are highly structured types of systematic reviews that look and reanalyze quantitative data from multiple studies using statistical methodology. Next slide. You have narrative reviews. These are broad summaries of overviews of a specific topic, typically written by experts in the field. Then you have editorials and commentaries. These are short, often invited, written by editorial board members or experts, providing content, opinion, or critique on recently published data. Next slide. You have short communications or letters or brief reports. What are they? These are shorter, highly impact papers. They are designed to quickly share preliminary findings or significant discovery in ongoing research before a full paper is published. Then you have case reports. Thank you. You have case reports or case series. These are detailed write-up on one patient or a group of patients, usually highlighting an unusual diagnosis, a very rare diagnosis, an unusual diagnosis, diagnostic presentation, treatment, or side effect. We call them case reports or case series. Case reports when you report individual cases, case series when you report a group of cases. Next slide, please. Now, why publish? Why do we bother to publish our research? I mean, what are the benefits of publishing? One, it helps researchers to establish themselves as experts in the field. You cannot call yourself or be labeled an expert if you do not showcase the research you've conducted in that particular field. Career advancement, you've of what the term publish or perish. Particularly in academic institutions, you're required to produce evidence of scholarly development by publishing by performing research and showing evidence of publication in peer-reviewed journal. Professional recognition opens doors to new opportunities for funding and specific engagements. I heard your gentleman here talk about grants, grants. You have to be recognized professionally for anybody to award you any grant. And of course, how will you do that? One of the ways you do that is for your publication, for it to be accessible through relevant publication.
Okay, it's network. Sorry, maybe no, it's network.
Okay, so I should go ahead.
Yes,
Okay, fine.
network.
It creates opportunities for collaboration. It creates opportunities for collaboration, increases visibility, increases your visibility. You publish you want to, for example, you want to attend a conference or you want to seek for an inter-academic relationship with a certain institution abroad. And one of the ways in which you probably be invited or be accepted is if you're recognized and visible. And it can only be visible through scientific publications. Professional development, inspiration for future research. As I'm sitting down here and I'm looking at this group of people, already one researcher has come to mind. What's the level of awareness? Awareness among us of human papillomavirus prevention of carcinoma. So I can easily develop perseverance and circulating among all of us, and that's a study. Contributes to the field. I'll give you an example. The commonest cause of maternal death worldwide is eclampsia, incision disorder related. In this environment, incision disorder related to hypertension that develops during pregnancy. And some years ago, it was through research that a particular medication, magnesium sulfate, was discovered to significantly prevent incisions that lead to that result from eclampsia or occur during eclampsia. So that publication, it was based on that publication that medication now is first place treatment process when you're taking care of that condition. So it contributes to the field. As to one's resume, next slide. It leads to improvement in one's research and writing process. When you publish, when you send your papers for publication or your academic work for publication, it is reviewed by peer reviewers, returned back to improve your writing. It improves your writing, you learn from their comments, they actually improve your writing and makes you a better researcher. It strongly increases one's visibility. It leads to invitation to become peer reviewers and guest editor or join the editorial board. When you're very visible, when the journals have access, your journals have access to your work, a lot of journals will begin to invite you to join the editorial board. It disseminates new knowledge, disseminates new knowledge, improves patient care and policy. I used to tell people this story. When I did my houseworship in University of Port Harcourt Hospital, a lot of when I was in the Department of Surgery, everybody kept on asking me, you know Professor Spencer Ifem? That was my teacher in university, and he was that known because he had done a lot of work in honey in wound dressing. He was the one that exposed the benefits of honey in wound dressing. So everybody kept on asking, yeah, I felt honey, even though they had never seen it. So that's keynote study he did, bringing out the benefits of honey in wound dressing, actually improves patient care and policy. When I was in Calabar, we were almost using honey. We almost all are 30 minutes. It enhances institutional reputation. When you are assessing the academic standing of academic institutions, the quality of research the members conduct is taken significantly into consideration. And of course, I always tell people, I'm a chairman of a research ethical committee. It's unethical for you to conduct research without publishing. Unethical to conduct research, you must publish. It's unethical for you to conduct research without publishing. Next slide, please. Now, planning your manuscripts. How do you plan your research manuscript? How do you go about? You want to write a manuscript, you want to conduct a research. What do you do? How do you do that? You define your target audience. This research work I'm going to do and I'm going to get published. Who am I directing this research work to? Who is my target audience? Who are my target audience? Then you must select an appropriate journal, because this is key to accepting your work and sending your work out to assessment. You select an appropriate journal. For example, if you're publishing something about malaria in children, you're not going to send that to a history journal. Neither are you going to send that to a journal that has to do with hearing. So you select one, you review the author guidelines. You must go through the author guidelines of the journal you want to publish. The author guidelines are very specific when it comes to what you require when you're publishing, when you are sending your article for publication.
The network.
But it's better for them to follow.
Okay.
Now, what's the structure of a scientific paper? The vast majority of papers published in scientific journals today follow a fairly simple structure with the acronym IMRAD. Next slide. What's IMRAD? Very simple. Introduction I, methods M, results R, discussion P, and discussion. Next slide.
So we don't write it down.
IMRAD. No, you get the slides, have you? You're going to get the slides. IMRAD. I have up to 80 slides, so we have to start. IMRAD. Now there are additional sections. That's the first part. Structure is the basic structure. Introduction, methods, results, and discussion. But then you have other sections. You have the abstract. We are going to look at them very quickly. You have keywords. You have references, tables, figures, and supplementary material. Next slide. Now, the title, very important. The title. The title is the first part seen by an editor, and it can prejudice the way your manuscript is handled. That title you see is the first part. In fact, not only the editor, it's the first part a reader sees. If you open the table of contents of any journal, the first part you see is the title. And a good title is essentially a statement of the aim of your work. A good title is a statement of the aim of your work. A good title should be specific, clear, concise, informative, and contain keywords that will make it easy to locate. Easy to locate, of course, we are talking about when you're searching the literature on the web. So it should be specific, clear, concise, informative, contain keywords that will make it easy to locate. Next slide. It should be as short as possible and should convey in easily understood terms what this paper is about. It's short, not too long. Short as possible and convey to the reader what in easily understood terms what the paper is. Exactly how a title should be worded depends on, to some extent, on the journal to which the article is being submitted. Remember, I told you that you must read the instructions of authors to the journal. You must. Some journals have specifications on how you word the title. Some will not want to add any abbreviation. Some will not and stuff. Next slide, please. Avoid, I said, sensational claims, acronyms, unnecessary abbreviations, and trendy jargon. That's an example of the title of work I did. Awareness and practice of malaria prevention strategies among pregnant women in Nigeria. Straight to the point, contains keywords, not unusually long. Now the abstract, sometimes called the summary. What is an abstract? An abstract refers to a concise summary of a research paper. That's what an abstract is. After the title, it is the second most read part of the paper. After the title, the abstract is the second most read part of the paper. The abstract should be short, intelligent, informative, interesting, contain no abbreviations. Most journals will actually insist that it should contain, the abstract shouldn't contain abbreviations, should not contain jargons or terms that may be confusing to readers. Next slide. The abstract, what's the purpose of the abstract? The abstract tells some abstracts. The abstract tells readers to quickly determine if the full text is relevant to them without reading the entire document. What does that mean? There are some people that will not, once they read the abstract, the quality of the abstract will make them decide whether they go ahead to read the full paper or not. Many readers will don't read the abstract. And if they think the abstract is not worthwhile, they won't bother reading your paper. And then the abstract usually should contain about 150 to 200 words, although the maximum allowed is usually dependent on the journal you're sending it. Is there a problem with your?
Not charge.
Okay, sorry. Want to use my system?
No, we can make progress.
Okay, fine, go ahead. Now, this is very important for you. When you're writing, although the abstract begins at the next section after the title, it appears at the beginning of the paper, it is almost always best to write it at the end, after you complete your research, and then you draw your conclusion. When you finish your work, you draw to complete your research, that's where you now preferably go and write your abstract. Next slide. Now, the abstract what did you do? What did you find? And what did you find? What was your conclusion? That's the abstract. Your structure for the story. Next slide. The structured abstract is divided into specific subsections. Each is introduced by a bolded heading, while the unstructured abstract is written in a single narrative paragraph, but with sentences that follow a logical section by section order without headings. The only difference is that the structure has headings that are bolded, while the unstructured is written in a single narrative paragraph. There are no identifiable subsections. Next slide. The structured abstract is required, since I'm a medical person, the structured abstract is required in most medical journals, while the unstructured abstract is usually mostly preferred in the humanities and social sciences. Now, if someone would ask, is there a benefit for the structured abstract? Just 1 second. The last one, let's go back again. The structured abstract contains more information, is easy to read or easier to read, facilitates peer review, and is preferred by readers and authors. This was science research has found. Go to the next one now. Next slide. Now, what are the sections of the structured abstract? Just similar to the paper. You have the background, what are the issues that led to the work? What makes the work interesting? And the aim, what did you plan to achieve? What gap is being filled? Methods, how did you set about achieving your aims? What did you really do? That's the method is all about how did you do what you did. Then results, what are the main, this is abstract, so it's a summary. What are the main significant findings? Conclusion, why are your results important? Where will these results lead? Why are your results? You discovered why are these results in a very well summarized manner. That's an example of a structured abstract, the paper I published. You can see abstract background, title, names of the authors, methods, results, conclusion, and then keywords. Right, next one. But then what are keywords? These are short phrases. Most journals will insist you add keywords. And why do they insist? What are these keywords about? These are short phrases that authors select to describe the main idea of the paper. They are usually listed below the abstract, and most journals require about 10 keywords. Go ahead. They act as digital facts for your study. They summarize the main topic methods and scope of your research paper. And then, most importantly, they enable the last one. Because this is one of they enable academic databases. You index your work, because now we are talking about indexing. We'll come to that later. Indexing. So they enable, that's part of why most important reason, one of the most important reasons why keywords are included. They actually enable academic databases index your work. Next slide. Now the introduction, the body of the paper. The introduction is a brief overview of the subject to be studied and the overall purpose of carrying out the study. So when you're writing, what is your introduction about? Your introduction is a brief overview of the subject to be studied and an overall purpose of carrying out the study. It's a brief information on the topic, which is timely and new insights that the study will contribute. Next slide. Your introduction should be short and arresting. And before you write your introduction, you must ensure that you've read previous studies, similar studies, about your research topic. Next slide. Now, this is the structure of your introduction. You follow this structure. First paragraph, perhaps background of what your study is on. The next should be current knowledge about the study. Malaria, you're studying yellow fever or knowledge of condom among university students. So the first slide will be background about condom and university students. Next slide, what's the current knowledge about university students and use of condom? Then the next slide, what is the gap in knowledge about that subject? Is it that most of them don't use in other places? Then the next slide, what is the justification of your work? Oh, justification is that this work has never been carried out in this environment, even though the rate of sexual transmitted diseases that will have been prevented from condom use is high. So study rationale and justification. And then of course, in the last part of the introduction should carry your aim. The aim should always be stated at the end. Hence, this study is now carried out to determine the awareness of and use of condom among students in the University of Europe. Next slide. Materials and methods. The methodology section should describe in sequence how the study was designed, carried out, and how your data was analyzed. That's the essence of the methods. It should be sufficiently detailed so that an independent researcher working in the field can reproduce the study sufficiently to allow validation of the conclusion. What does this mean? Someone can look at your work, your methods, and replicate that same story. Someone, if you say, I'm working on the knowledge of all of us here, the knowledge of all of us here on the use of antiretroviral, among pregnant women, and I decide to publish that work, somebody in America to be able to carry that same work on the same similar population based on my description of my methodology. Am I making sense? That's very important. Now, what is the structure of the methodology? Your study design. Is it a cross-sectional study? Is it a case control study? Your study setting. Where did you carry out this study? I carried out this study in the University of Maternity Unit of the University of Teaching Hospital. Your study participants, this study included all pregnant women that registered for antenatal care during so period. Your exclusion criteria, if you are studying healthy pregnant women, of course you will exclude those that are critically ill. So you have to define your inclusion and exclusion criteria. Sample size, you cannot, when you're doing research, you cannot study sometimes whole population. So you may have to take representative samples. So you have to describe how you selected your sample and calculated your sample size, and then you include your variables. Go ahead, next slide. Data collection. How did you collect your data? Did you use questionnaires or did you interview your participants? How did you analyze your data? Very important. You must describe how you analyze your data. And finally, I talked about ethical considerations. Once your research involves humans, you must obtain and approvals conduct that research from a certified ethical review committee. Must. Yes, go ahead. Because the reason is so that it avoids harm and risk to participants. You're ensuring safety of the participants, so you must obtain ethical clearance. Results. This is a representation of the results. That's the results section now. It's a presentation of the results obtained corresponding to the methods described. That's the key word. The results you're presenting or you're going to be presenting should correspond to the methods you have described in the method section. And you should organize them in such a way that they are accessible to the reader. And the report should be written in past tense. When I review journal articles, a lot of journals that I read for so many journals, and they send them to me, and you see them reporting in present tense or future tense. No, the reports, the highest proportion of patients were age so. Most of them were traders. Significant proportion were Christian. So you report in the past tense because you have already conducted the study, not future tense or present tense. Findings should be presented in tables, figures, and graphs. You should never interpret the results in the results section. That's not the time to say, oh, yes, most of them were married, and this is because a significant proportion of them came from so place. No, you just state results in the results section. You don't interpret results. You don't discuss results. Now the discussion now interprets your results. The discussion interprets and explains your results. And then, of course, it also clearly explains how your results help answer the research questions posed in the introduction. That's the essence of the discussion section, to explain and interpret those results in relation to the research questions you have already outlined in the introduction. Go ahead. Now, even the discussion has a structure to enable you to flow properly. Some journals will actually list the structure in their instruction to authors. Some may not. But it follows this pattern. The first part of the discussion should contain a statement of your principal or main findings. That's the first part. My study showed so. The main findings will state the first one. The next part should be comparing your findings with those of previous studies. In my study, the majority of those of patients who were HIV positive were single. This finding is different or contrary to two persons finding in Kenya, where most of them were married. And this is because of so. However, that study, because you have to include the strengths and weakness of the methods used in the study cited compared to the findings being discussed. That study in Kenya, the population was small. The study population was small. My own was larger. Something like that. So that's the essence of the next part. To compare your findings, including the strengths and weaknesses of those studies used and cited. Go ahead, next slide. Now, the next portion would be the meaning of that study and implications for clinicians, scientists, and policymakers. Yes, my study found that a significant proportion of the University of Uyo students do not have significant knowledge of condom. What is the meaning of this to clinicians, scientists? That simply means that they may be at risk of obtaining sexual transmitted infections faster. Therefore, the policy must be put in place to ensure that awareness is created more among them. So that's the essence. Then the next section, of course, or the next part should be description of the strengths of your study. If your study has any strengths or any limitations in your study design. For example, if you conducted a single institutional study, your findings may not be generalizable to what occurs in other institutions across the country. That's a limitation of part of your methodology. Then unanswered questions and specific areas for future research. Next slide. Now, what are the don'ts? Remember, we're talking about structure of a research paper. Do not repeat results and percentages and p-values. So a lot of people do this in the discussion. Those in the discussion, there were the number of women, so percent, p-value to, you don't repeat in the discussion. You don't review literature in the discussion, unnecessary review of literature. You don't repeat textbook knowledge. You go down and start talking about life cycle of malaria, and then you enter the treatment in the discussion. No. You don't repeat textbook knowledge or side references that do not have a close relationship with the present results. Don't do that in the discussion. Next slide. Now the conclusion. This is a brief summary of the results and discussion. This is a brief summary. That's the conclusion is a brief summary. A good conclusion must, one, answer the research question. A good conclusion must answer the research question. Your conclusion must reflect that research question you asked. Two, a good conclusion must be supported by findings. You cannot conclude, you don't put a conclusion that is not related to the findings in your work. Your conclusion must be related to your findings. Must. And you should avoid overgeneralization in your conclusion. And then, very importantly, you must include practical recommendations where appropriate. You have now said that yes. You have now said yes, that you've seen that most of the adolescents in the secondary school do not have good knowledge of contraception. Therefore, what do you recommend? You understand what I'm saying? Do you recommend it should be included in the school curriculum? What do you recommend? Now, references. Of course, you must always have your references because you obtain your information from sources, literature. There are the two most common referencing styles, that's typographical error, are the Vancouver and Harvard. There are others, but the Vancouver and Harvard are the two most common referencing styles. In the Vancouver referencing style, the references are numbered consecutively in the order which they are mentioned. What does that mean? I wish I could show you here. You reference the statement 1 with the number 1, the superscript. When the next reference is 2. The next reference, if it's a different reference, 3. So you number your references consecutively in your paper. That's the Vancouver. And in the order with which they are first mentioned. In the text, they are identified in Arabic numbers, either in brackets or superscript, depending on the journal style. So you will see a statement with a number, either in superscript or brackets. That's the Vancouver style of referencing. And those numbers come consecutively. Next slide. At Harvard, the Harvard one is different. The Harvard, at the end of the paper, the order referencing is alphabetical. That's at the end of the work. Instead of referencing 1, 2, 3, 4, the Harvard one, they use the reference in alphabetical order. The authors' names are referenced in cited in alphabetical order. Amartya Pai A, Bat this, C this, no number. In the text, the references are made by giving in parentheses the name of the author or authors and year of publication. You make the statement and then in the bracket you put Amartya Pai 2021. That's the Harvard style of referencing. Now, choosing the right journal, very important. We have mentioned about choosing the right journal. Why is this necessary? I mean, why did I add this? Why did I bother to talk to you about choosing the right journal? Because right now, you have over between 25,000 to 400,000 active English language scholarly journals worldwide. Of course, you know, because of the access, because of the internet. And approximately about 9,930 are classified under biomedicals, medicine, and health sciences. Now, very importantly, I had to bring this up. In the light of proliferation of journals, there are much more journals now. When I was a resident doctor, most journals were hardcover. There were no internet journals then. So there were not many journals, but now there are journals all over the place on the internet. So in the light of proliferation of journals, some have come under scrutiny with terms such as historical, predatory. I'm sure some of us have heard about predatory journals. Unscrupulous or dishonest being used to describe them. Next slide. When choosing the right journal, why is journal selection? Why is it necessary to take your time when selecting a journal to send your to send your publication or your article or your paper to publish? Now, in order to publish in a journal that will help one study, which is intended audience, you want to send your research work to a journal that will reach the target audience you're intending it for. Two, to ensure that the journal matches one's scientific values and integrity. To submit to a journal where one's work has a fair chance of being accepted for you want to submit to a journal where your article will be rejected. So you have to take time and choose the right journal properly that will have a better chance of that your paper being accepted for publication. The journal chosen should be respected in one's field and a readership that will be interested in the work. You will not send your paper to a journal that no person will read or will not give you the type of visibility you want. Next slide. Publishing in journals that are not reputed can diminish the credibility of one's research, lead to career limitation, and may result in little or no dissemination and uptake. Next slide. Now, so what do you consider? What do you now consider? What do you take into consideration when you want to choose the journal? Of course, your research topic and its intended audience. What topic? This is my topic. I want to work on contraception. What's my audience? Those that are working in reproductive healthcare field. That will make you decide to send to a journal related to that field. The type of journal, is it multidisciplinary? A journal like, for example, Nigerian Medical Association journal that can publish all aspects of medicine. Or am I sending to a pediatric journal? So this will guide, if you're writing about something in pediatrics, it will probably be better to send to, a specialized journal. The aims and scope of the journal. Do the aims and scope of your journal align with that research topic? You have to check open access options. Next slide. Publication frequency, you look at the publication frequency. Some journals are published 4 times a year, some are published twice a year. Those that are published 4 times a year, of course, will have a higher turnover, and the chances of your article being published earlier is faster. And then the type of articles published. There are some journals that publish only case reports. You're not going to send an original article or a original research work to an article that publishes only case reports. Then you also check from duration of acceptance to publication. Because all this is written in the instruction to authors. If an article tells you, a journal tells you that they will accept your article and publish within 7 days, you should know that that's a predatory journal. Publication and processing charges and any other additional charges. Some articles you have to check because you have to look at your budget. You cannot send to a journal that charges publication fees of £1,000 when you can barely buy £2 weight of meat in the market. It cannot work. You understand? And then some journals have waivers for those developing countries. So you have to check all that. Readership, your target audience. Who you're trying to reach, and then indexing. When I was asked to send my details, one of the things I was asked was to send some part of my citation in relation to where it can be accessed online, either LinkedIn or Google Scholar citation page. Sorry. So, and if your journals are not indexed, there's no way on earth you can access them online. When I'm reviewing work, sometimes work is sent to me. Those who want to be promoted at professorial level, universities send them to us to access them for promotion. And one of the things you access are their scientific publication. And what I do is very simple. I just go to PubMed and type in your name to find out if you have properly indexed or your articles are indexed are indexed in very good indexing databases. And some people list up to 80 publications, but you only see 5 in those international databases. So that tells you the low quality publications they have. Go ahead. You must review the editorial board members. This should be known and established experts in the field related to the aims and scope of the journal and affiliated with known institutions. If you're sending your article to a certain journal and you are in that field, for example, you're in the field of computer. Next, please. Okay, fine. You must also check the peer review process. Well, all these are in the journal's page. You can go to the home page of the journal or the structure. You see all this. The journal should explain their peer review process. So, a reputable journal will fully discuss their peer review process, including the criteria they use, the selection, how they select their reviewers. They will tell you the type of peer review they do. Later on, you will see the different types of peer review. The time frame of how they handle journals, they will explain all this. And the handling process by the editorial board. A solid journal, a quality journal will explain all this to you. Go ahead. You must also read the instruction for authors and the submission guidelines and publication criteria, very important. And then you must discuss, you sit down with your co-authors and discuss your needs, priorities. Which journal are we sending it to? We read the instruction of authors, we've done this, then you all achieve consensus about your submission. You must all agree that we are sending it to social place and social place. In fact, most journals will actually ask, a lot of journals will actually ask all of you to sign authorship, an authorship paper. Go ahead, that you have all read the article and have approved your submission. Now, for submission guidelines, you must know this, the 5 formats, because they will specify the length. How many? Some articles will tell you social pages to social pages. Social pages to social pages. They will tell you New Times Roman, font size 12, double spacing. They will specify when you're submitting. You also check your referencing style. Some articles will tell you Vancouver. Some will tell you no, Harvard. You cannot write and submit, use Vancouver style of referencing to a journal that has told you to send. Those are the few things that will cause rejection at the editorial, the first editorial stage. Keywords, some will tell you keywords, some will insist you add what they call a running title, a very brief title below the abstract. Some will insist that you must add author's contribution at the end. What did this author contribute? Some have copyright forms that you and submit when you're submitting. And then, of course, some guidelines for figures. Some will tell you so the number of figures you must add. Some will tell you the number of tables. Some will tell you to add tables at the end. Some will tell you to add tables at the body of the manuscript. How you label your tables, whether in Arabic or Roman numerals. So you must also check. Very important. You must follow the author's instruction, author's guidelines very closely to avoid rejection. Go ahead. Editorial quality can provide clues as to the journal quality, very important. Title, abstract spelling, grammatical and punctuation errors. Lack of clarity, indicative of loss of editorial oversight or real commitment. When I read articles, they send me professorial documents to access. I will know a poor quality journal. Immediately I read the article. Very terrible grammatical errors, numerous topographical errors, even poor food of words, poor language. Definitely, you will know that this is probably a predatory journal because those are the things that peer reviewers will have identified and requested to be corrected. And of course, contact information of the editorial staff, very important. And lastly, you must always watch out for predatory journals that charge fees without offering peer review. You must choose your journal before you start writing your article. I mentioned it before. And if you have any problems with choice of journals, librarians are well suited. In our own time, those days, we used to have, now everything is done online. We used to have libraries, librarians. Even now, in the academic institutions, I think they even study library science to almost the professorial level. Yes. So you have, I think that's what they do. You have librarians that are well suited to provide guidance in helping authors with selecting quality journals to consider for publication. So consult a librarian affiliated to your establishment or local library. There's nothing wrong in consulting a librarian affiliated. Which journal do you think I should send it to? Which good quality journal do I have? Next slide. Predatory journals. I decided to add this because people are becoming a thorn in the flesh. And a lot of people, because of the necessity for quick advancement, most of them rush to publish in predatory journals. Almost a lot of people use because it's easier, faster. Now, this refers to systematic for-profit publication of purportedly scholar content in a deceptive and fraudulent way without regard for quality assurance. That's what are predatory journals. They are fake scholarly publications which prioritize revenue generation over academic integrity. They frequently charge excessive or hidden fees, offering rapid but superficial review and aggressively soliciting manuscripts. You will see emails sent to you, oh, please submit. Sometimes I've been called, twice. Please, can you submit the manuscript to us? They will never tell you that they are charging fees. When you go to their website, you will never see the mandatory fees they will charge. It's only when you will now submit and they will immediately accept. They will not start telling you to pay 200 euros, 400 euros. Research that, then why am I emphasizing predatory journals? Research that has not been peer reviewed or published in a fake journal can harm society if translated into policy and practice. Next slide. Red flags. What will tell you that this journal is predatory? To make you wrong. That's why I say red. You know the color red. Yes, the peer review process is unrealistically fast. They start telling you that they will publish within 1 week, but from acceptance, immediately you submit, within 1 week they publish it. No normal journal can publish that fast. The first article I got published, Nigerian Postgraduate Medical, the very first, that was a long time ago. It took 1 year for them to publish. National College. So the process is not relatively fast. No clear description of peer review process or a very short peer review time is guaranteed. Submitted manuscripts receive no peer review. They don't peer review at all. Information, if you look at their page, the information on the editorial body is either missing or misleading or false. They will put photographs of professors that do not exist. Or yes, do not exist. And they are always, meanwhile, the journal most of either India or also Pakistan. They'll be talking about editors in America and Britain. Or false or inappropriate for the journals. But sometimes the full names or affiliations of editorial board members are missing. They're not even there. Next slide. Mandatory author fees are not stated or explained clearly on the journal website, submission system, or letter of acknowledgement, and are reviewed only in the acceptance letter as a condition of acceptance. And this is even more important. Poor language usage, very terrible. Like when you read, when you go to their journal listing, bad tenses, incorrect use of plural and singular nouns, poor language uses, and poor quality, both in presentation of the journal's description and guidelines in some articles that are published. Next slide. Now, authorship, very important. Who is an author of a scientific publication? When you see, because this is actually very important, you realize why it's important when we move on. Who is an author? The way authorship refers to the way the research community identifies those who should be recognized and credited with a specific contribution of the work and held responsible and accountable for the information contained in the publication. That's who is referred to an author. The authors should substantially contribute to one, conception and design of the research paper. Now, all of you must, at least, if not most, two, data acquisition. The authors may contribute in different ways. This all may not contribute to all, but significantly to most. Data acquisition and analysis and interpretation of the paper. Next slide. Drafting the article, of the article. That revising it critically, this is important. All authors should read the article critically for important intellectual content. And lastly, all the authors should finally approve the version to be published. If an article is published and for some reason an author is written to, and that author says he was not part of the publication, that article that's an unethical practice. Are you following me? That article can be withdrawn. Go ahead. Avoid ghost authored articles. When you use the term ghost authorship, what do you mean? A ghost author is the person or person, one of the persons that significantly took part in that drafting the article and ensuring its publication is not list provided as in a list of authors. That's ghost authorship. Then what is gift authorship? Put my name, put my name, put my name, put my name. That's gift authorship. Put my name. You have an article about 14 authors. 10 of them did not, they only saw that article when it was published. That's the practice of adding to the list of authors. Put my name, so should avoid it. Practice of adding to the list of authors someone who has not made a significant intellectual contribution should avoid. Go ahead. Peer review. We have come to peer review. What is peer review? Why are we talking of peer review articles? And I wanted to say this because I did not add this. Even books should be peer reviewed. Even books, yes. Even books should be peer reviewed. Let's go on. What is peer review? It's an independent evaluation, assessment of research papers, scientific or professional work by experts in the same or similar field. Note the key word. The same, not someone. I'm in obstetrics and gynecology. You give my paper to an agricultural someone in agriculture. No, to peer review in the same or similar field. It is reported to be the best form of scientific evaluation and the only widely accepted method of research validation. Always remember that. It's a critical element of the scholarly publication process and one of the major cornerstones of academic process. Go ahead. Why is peer review? It improves research quality, clearly. It detects errors. I've told you about grammatical errors, language flow. It detects errors and methodological flaws. It ensures scientific validity. It assesses originality. We're talking about research work now. It assesses originality. It protects scientific integrity, removes those dubious things. It clarifies, it enhances clarity and organization. It prevents dissemination of misleading information. It supports evidence-based practices. And of course, it promotes ethical research conduct. If you send an article, if I read an article and you don't add ethical considerations, I'm rejecting the article outright. Are you following me? And reject it because you must obtain informed consent. That ethical process which we are going to look at is very important. The ultimate purpose of peer review is to maintain the integrity of science. Okay. To maintain the integrity of science. To maintain the integrity of science. Oh, my eyesight is not that bad. To maintain the integrity of science by filtering out invalid or poor quality articles. Go ahead. Now, what do peer reviewers review? I review for so many journals, international journals. What do we review? Scientific merit. Your research paper, is that question you're asking important? That research work you're doing, is that research scientific merit? And most importantly, the methodology. Did you describe your methods clearly? Is your study design appropriate for that study? Because there are some study designs that are inappropriate for the research work you're doing. So is your study design, are your statistics correct? You do statistics left and report right. Is your manuscript clearly written? When I read some discussions of some manuscripts, I will write there a significant proportion of the manuscript is so that contains so many grammatical errors that are difficult to understand. I send it back for either major revision or I reject it. You cannot read something that you don't understand. It's so badly written that sentences do not make sense. Go ahead. Do the results support the conclusions? I have said it before that your conclusions must be based on your results. Is your work original? You cannot just go and I have done study on, for example, I've done study on teenage pregnancy. You come and do study, the same work I've done, nothing new. The same teenage pregnancy, the same information, the same thing as my study. So what new thing are you adding? You understand what I mean? So is your work original? And then lastly, ethical compliance. I've told you my own experience with that. Now, what's the peer review process? This peer review we're talking about, what does it exactly mean? What does peer review involve? What does peer review involve? First, manuscript submission. You submit your manuscript. And luckily, now most journals use a dedicated online submission system. Once you go into the manuscript, Nigerian Journal of Medicine, you go to their web page, you see submit manuscript, but you have to register with them, password and so on. You register with them, then they give you information on how to submit online. You now submit your manuscript in files online. So you have a manuscript submission and an online submission system for most manuscripts now. Editorial screening, the editors evaluate editors first evaluate your manuscript. Is the manuscript suitable for this journal? If, for example, I'm an editor, if I'm an editorial board of some manuscript, they send it to me. If you send me the first thing, is this manuscript suitable for this journal? Does it meet up with the journal's scope and quality? When the editors are satisfied that it's suitable for that journal, the editors now invite reviewers to review or assess those manuscripts. So the editors select appropriate reviewers based on their expertise. Yes, the editors now invite. In fact, some actually first invite. When they are set, they now send the research papers for them to review. Go ahead. The reviewers now review. What do they analyze? They look at the manuscript content, methodology, and significance. Go ahead. And usually they send to 2 or more reviewers. The reviewers now make their recommendations. What are the recommendations? And then the chief editor makes his editorial decision. So the reviewers provide constructive feedback to authors, identify strengths and weaknesses, and recommends whether the article should be published, rejected, or requires a major or minor revision. The authors now revise the manuscript in accordance with the reviewer's comments and resubmit. When you're revising, there's usually a provision to show and outline, answer all the questions and consent of the reviewer separately and submit, so that one is clear. And then mark on the revised manuscript where you made your corrections. Sometimes you'll be asked to mark a column. Then, if accepted, the manuscript undergoes copy editing, typesetting, and is published by the journal. Based on the review, hold on, there's something I want to say. Based on the reviewer's comments. Now, that last sentence it is usually the editor's responsibility to make a final decision about a manuscript. Why am I going to say make a statement? Some years back, I studied the outcome of delivery among women who are delivered more than 5-6 times. Usually, they are prone to higher risk during pregnancy, labor, and delivery. And I sent it to the Nigerian Journal of Medicine. The reviewers said, well, one reviewer wasn't too happy with it. But the editor called me back, told me to make my corrections, that he was going to accept it. And that paper has been published. So the editor also has a role to make a final decision on the manuscript. I don't know if I'm making sense. Go ahead. Of course, these are the editorial decisions. We have talked about this. Go ahead. Types of peer reviews. We talked about what peer review is. We talked about the process of peer review. What are the types of peer review? Single blind review. Single blind means the people that are reviewing your paper know your identity, but the authors are not aware of your identity. How does this happen? When they send the paper to you, they will reveal the author's identity to be written there, at the head of the paper. But the authors will not know. They are not going to reveal the reviewer's identity to the authors. That's single blind. Then you have double blind. That's what's mostly used now. Neither the authors or the reviewers know each other's identity. When they send the paper to me to review, they don't include the author's information. Are you following me? Each of them has their advantage and disadvantage. Then you have the open review, where the authors and reviewers know each other. So these are the types of peer review identities. Next slide.
Okay. So can I ask a question?
I thought you were asking. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay, for the double blind review. So
yes.
When the reviewer is sending back each review, it's not the reviewer that sends to you.
No, it's sent to the editor. The editor now sends to the review, sends to me. Okay. Yes. The other you don't. In fact, when you are submitting, you are told when you are submitting to your paper, you'll be told to submit in such a way. The title page containing your name will be different from the manuscript. So the manuscript is sent without any identifier. That's it. Yes. Go ahead.
But sorry to cut you, sir.
No, go ahead.
I've received several invitations from one of our societies to review some manuscripts, and they tend to mention the name of the.
That's why I said look at this open review.
Okay.
Open reviewer. There's open review where both there's single blind, where they will send there. But the most common is double blind. There are some that they will send you the whole thing with that's the single blind review. A lot of foreign journals do that. But most actually it's a double blind system. So what are the reasons for paper rejection? When your paper is rejected, because some papers get rejected. When they reject your paper, what are the possible reasons for papers that papers can be rejected? Poor study design, weak methodology. I always tell people that the methods is the most important aspect. You must be able to describe step by step how you did your research work. And a lot of people anyway, let's not go there. Poor writing. I've told you about the writing. You read a paper, you don't even understand what the message of the like one of my teachers used to say, the work has no aim, it has no message. You cannot publish that type of work. Lack of psychiatric work to a psychiatric journal. Next slide. Failure to follow author guidelines. In fact, some back to you. Once they go through and it does not meet the author guidelines, the editor will send it back that you should go and remodify your manuscript in accordance with the journal's instruction for authors. And then plagiarism, very important. These days, there are even tools you check. There are a lot of journals, once you send to them, they use those tools to assess for plagiarism. And if it meets a certain percentage, they won't publish your journal. In fact, sometimes I think there are punitive measures. And lastly, ethical consent. You cannot do biomedical work on humans, biomedical studies without ethical considerations. Even if you're doing work that does not involve contact, you should get a waiver from the ethical review committee. Don't know if you must get you must get consent or get approval for an ethical review committee to conduct that study. Go ahead. What are the don'ts? Don'ts. Very clear. Do not submit the same study to more than one journal. That's it's unethical. It's unethical to submit the same study to more than one journal at the same time. It's very unethical. If you must submit, you have to withdraw from that journal. If there's a problem, you withdraw from journal and resubmit. You should never submit an article to two journals at the same time. You should not submit to journals that do not publish your type of study or article. The reason is clear. Please do not submit your article to a predatory, fake, or deceptive journal. Don't. Next slide. Now, research is conduct. We talked about ethics, biomedical research. Are there ethics related to research itself? Yes. Falsification, manipulating research materials or process, or changing or omitting data or results, such that, what's the idea?
Okay.
Manipulation. So that it is not accurately represented in the results. Once you manipulate results, or you change data, or omit data to make your result, that's falsification and it's a research misconduct. Plagiarism, appropriation of another person's ideas, processes, results, or words without giving appropriate credit. Once you use somebody's idea or the person's words, you must do what? Reference. Even if you're paraphrasing, provided it is not yours, you must reference it. Otherwise, you're plagiarizing. And it's taken very seriously in academic research. Very, very seriously. Very, very seriously. Go ahead. No, there's one more. Fabrication. Making up, some people just construct data and results. You just wake up, construct data and results and send it for publication. Making up data and results or reporting them. You should never do that. Then there's what they call duplicate publication. We're publishing a significant proportion of that paper or the entire paper. You can't republish it under a different name just to add to your publication. You change the name, change a few things, and send it for publication. Then there's what they call fragmented publication or salami slicing. What does that mean? You conduct a study, you go to a rural community and conduct a study of HIV/AIDS awareness among adolescents. And then when you come, you break it down into 5 different papers and send to different articles. Dividing a study into multiple smaller papers to artificially inflate an author's publication. That's publication misconduct. Ladies and gentlemen, concluding, developing a good quality research paper will require following this recommended process I have discussed with you during this presentation. Always remember that peer review process remains the best form of scientific evaluation and is central to scholarly publishing. Ladies and gentlemen, it's been a pleasure to have this topic. Those are my references. Those are my references. Next page. Those are my references. Next page. Next page. Next page. Thank you very much.